There's one thing that keeps the dismissive avoidant from true intimacy that I'm going to talk about today. So, Leslie Wells, connection coach here. I help individuals heal, thrive, repair, improve their romantic relationships by looking at things through an attachment lens. If you are new if you're new to attachment, let me just go back a little bit and tell you what a dismissive avoidant is. It is an individual who grew up in a childhood where their parents or their caregivers were emotionally unable to show up well for them. So whenever they would bring their parent a problem, or they had big feelings or big emotions, whether it's a child getting hurt, a child going through a breakup, or a child just struggling because the parent had to leave and there was separation, they didn't know what to do with that kid's feelings. If there's a tantrum, they don't know how to sit in those feelings with the kids, help them identify them, name them out loud, help them process them, and then move through them. They didn't have those skills themselves, so they couldn't teach their kids those skills. So what happens is they bring these things to their parent expecting some help to deal with these things emotionally, and the parent doesn't have anything to add. So essentially they either are criticized, they're seen as being weak for their emotions, sometimes they're even punished. At a minimum, they're usually dismissed. So if a child falls and they get hurt, then the parent's response is, oh, just suck it up, get back up, rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine. Instead of acknowledging that they're hurt, they are in pain, making sure that they know that they have someone who cares and that they're seen and heard, and then sitting in that space with the child until the feelings of pain and maybe the scariness of getting hurt, maybe there was a lot of blood and they needed help to know that that was okay and they're safe. Instead of helping them through that and identify their fear, the pain, maybe the embarrassment, instead of helping them identify that and allowing that to move through their body and sitting in that space with them, they just essentially blow it off, dismiss it, or worse, criticize and be like, quit being a wuss, suck it up, that kind of thing. So the child learns early on that emotions are bad, that when they have emotions, that is viewed as bad or negative or weak, and then they learn to suppress them, push them down, and distract, typically through play, because that's the only skill that a child has to deal with their emotions at that age, because they don't have the tools for emotional processing. So this emotional neglect creates this deep core wound for the dismissive avoidant. And their internal subconscious dialogue is, okay, I have these big feelings that no one else is displaying. So that must mean there's something wrong with me because I'm the only one experiencing this. And so that creates this inner defectiveness, this I'm broken inherently inside. Or they get to this place, and this is sort of adding to it, where they think, okay, I need these people to show up for me emotionally, but they're not able to do that. So what's wrong with me that I can't get what I need emotionally from the people around me? It's got to be me, that there's something wrong with me, and I'm the one who's broken. So they carry this defectiveness wound, this brokenness wound, into their relationships. It's a blueprint that is then set that they take into their future relationships. And that creates a lot of shame. So dismissive avoidance, their shame is very, very close to the surface. It's triggered very easily, which is why they cannot take criticism, feedback. When you bring them a problem, their internal dialogue is always, I'm always missing the mark. I'm never going to get it right. It's me. I'm bad. I'm broken. That shame lays so near the surface for them. Now, all insecure attachment is rooted in a wound of shame. And it's really bad for the fearful avoidant too, but it's very bad for the dismissive avoidant. So the number one thing that is really getting in the way of their intimacy for the dismissive avoidant is vulnerability, because of that shame wound. Because if you are vulnerable, that means you have to actually open up the window to let someone in to see all of the parts of you. And the problem for the dismissive avoidant is they do not want to be seen. That shame wound, shame says run and hide and don't let people see me. And so the cost to the dismissive avoidant, the high risk of vulnerability, is what makes them run from and triggered by intimacy. Vulnerability says I'm taking a risk and I'm opening myself up to the potential for being rejected, for seen. And their big fear is that if I let someone in, they're going to see me. They're going to see I'm defective. They're going to see I'm broken. They're going to see I'm not enough. They're going to see that something's wrong with me that they missed. And if they see that, they're going to leave me and be done with me, and the relationship's going to be over anyway. What happens is they aren't able to show the vulnerability, and it's a self-sabotaging, self-fulfilling prophecy. They're unable to be vulnerable, and so they keep their partner, pretty far away with lots and lots of distance, and they keep them at arm's length. And so the partner eventually gets tired of not having a real, true, deep, meaningful relationship where there is that intimacy and that connection. And then the partner gets fed up and that space gets larger and larger. And then they do start to see the dismissive avoidant in a different light and through a negative lens. And then a lot of times they get fed up, and that's when the relationship starts to deteriorate. And then that's confirmation to the dismissive avoidant that they were right, that defectiveness wound means that they're never going to make it in relationships, that relationships are not for them, and that they're inherently bad and broken, and it's always going to be that way. So while vulnerability is a risk, and it's an opportunity for people to hurt us when we open up to people, at the same time, you can't truly be loved and truly accepted if you aren't vulnerable. You're lying to yourself. If you're not coming openly and authentically and letting people see all the parts of you, then they're not truly loving you for who you are at your core level, and they're not even truly seeing you. So you can't be accepted if people don't actually know who you are. So one of the things that I do in my one-on-one coaching is help individuals who are dismissive avoidants by actually learning to sit in the discomfort of being vulnerable, by teaching them how to be vulnerable. What does that look like? What do we say? What do those scripts look like? How do we start small on things that aren't so dysregulating to us and want to cause us to shut down and pull back and go into that mode of self-protection? How do we do that? And where do we start? So we grow their capacity and vulnerability, and we learn, I teach them how to actually sit in the discomfort of those feelings and sit in it longer and longer and longer. You got to titrate it up until it's something they're more comfortable with. If you are a dismissive avoidant and you recognize that you truly, really struggle with vulnerability, and maybe you have a concept in your head of what you think it is, but you don't know how to execute it, or you don't know how to increase your comfort in it, then reach out to me. I do one-on-one coaching, and I work with a lot of dismissive avoidants, and I promise you that there are tools and techniques and strategies that you can use to start making some progress.